and I just realized that my mic has been muted this whole time. So I'm gonna put I'm gonna put in the notes. Uh, Fast forward to minute three. Basically, what I was saying was that um, I'm gonna teach you how to meet 10 managers within 10 days or within 30 days. You can do it faster. When I was doing this, I was meeting people in person. I was literally finding people on Google, contacting them, meeting them for coffee. So I'm in the Portland metro area and it's a little bit easier for me, but you can do this all over the phone and over Zoom. I talked about this last time. So let's go ahead and dive into it and let's see if I can. I want to try to share my LinkedIn page and actually do some searches and do some examples for you. All right. So, networking without networking, how to meet 10 managers within 30 days. Let's talk a little bit about the problems that or the challenges, the obstacles that we face when we are dealing with the sort of behemoth HR industry as it exists today. So the first issue is that there's a lot more competition just because of population changes. Another thing that increases competition is when the field that you're in becomes popular. So for example, right? Um, when I transitioned to UX, it was right on the verge of becoming a thing where many more colleges had master's programs. I remember when I was working up in Seattle, UW had like two or three different UX related programs in three different departments. So that gives you an idea of how popular it was. And a lot of developers were moving into UX because they were actually more creative um, and actually weren't really into development, but they got into it because it seemed like a good practical career to have. The problem with that is that sometimes you can move into something and realize you actually don't like it. Broken HR technology. Um, what this is, and you may have heard people say this. Oh, you have to put the right keywords into your resume, right? The problem with that is that your resume is not a really good measure of who you are as a person. There's nothing that can replace having having an actual conversation with somebody. Corporate hiring policies. Were also sometimes some unfair hiring policies, like written or unwritten rules about who quotas and who we have to hire and who we can't hire. So oftentimes your resume, if you're in the wrong um, demographic, your resume will just will just sit there, right? And this process gets around that. Uh, Bad resume heuristics. This is when you have a role where resumes are graded based off of exactly what words they have in them. This is not about getting your resume through the HR technology. This is just about bad resume heuristics. This is about um, things that people may look at or be trained to look at. For example, in UX, um, this isn't necessarily about resumes, but in UX, very often managers will want a portfolio website. So instead of your site being listed on a platform, kind of like how you have Squarespace, they want it to be www.yourname.com. Okay, can you do that with Squarespace? Yes. Can you do that with Shopify and all these other platforms? Yes. So what does it matter that it is www.yourname.com. Don't ask me why. I don't know why, but um, that's a bad heuristic, right? That's really not a good indicator of how of how good a designer you are. All right, misleading hiring practices. This is about, and I'll give you an example to explain it. So, one trick that recruiters will do when they're trying to build their list of candidates is that they'll intentionally leave an outdated role up. And so you think that's something that people are hiring for, and you spend the energy modifying your resume, your cover letter, and um, and even maybe even modifying your portfolio or your list of development projects or whatever list of projects you've worked on to match the requirements of this particular role, and they aren't even hiring for it. Either it's outdated or it's been canceled, right? Or they've already hired somebody, and that's really not a good use of your time. Um, After that, we have um, just the idea that a resume is not you, and there's nothing that you can tell from a person's capabilities from looking at their resume. A list of software or a list of skills is not the same thing as an actual person. And you'll find that, and this is the case in your actual life, is that very often you find yourself walking through an open door that had nothing to do with a resume. Right? Often people hire for culture. Um, so, for example, here in Portland, um, it's not uncommon for people to hire for being a hipster or having a certain set of political values or looking a certain way or being a certain age, right? I'm not going to say that any of those are bad because that's just how people operate. People have psychological they have heuristics. They have psychological rules of thumb that they've developed over experience. Well, when I hire this type of person, generally the work is of this quality or of that quality. That's just something that people do. There's no amount of HR technology that's going to solve for for that, right? Um, and related to that is people generally hire who they know. And so what we're going to do is increase the amount of people that we know. So we're actually going to focus on here. We're going to do this very quickly. And I have scripts and I have a method for how to do this. Getting the runaround from staffing agencies. This is um, when you are applying for a role or you get submitted through an agency for a role. And again, just like with the resume um, or with the misleading hiring practices, um, oftentimes that role will actually get canceled or get taken down, and the recruiter will just ghost you, right? New weak managers. Um, what this is, there are situations where there is a new manager and they are hiring people who they know, and because they don't know anybody or trust anybody at that company or that team, so they are doing the work of assembling or assembling a new team because maybe they've gotten some directive to have a fresh face or to sort of revamp that that team. All right. Our one big goal. So what are we trying to do here? We're trying to access the hidden job market, and we're trying to stand out by maximizing the number of one-on-one in person. One-on-one is the best. In person is the best. conversations that lead to other humans. What do I mean by that? Um, the reason is uh, you never know who other people know. So what we're going to do is an exercise in walking through open doors. If you've ever heard of Dr. Robert Glover, he has this book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And in the area around work, one thing that nice guys, and there's a ton of nice guys in tech, right? There's a big overlap between what Dr. Glover calls a nice guy and people who work in tech, right? What we're trying to do is increase the amount of people that we know and that know us and that have us in the back of their mind and have a pleasant, positive idea of who we are. All right. And there's an actual word for this concept. It's called planned happenstance. So what we're doing is creating planned happenstance, constructing unexpected career opportunities, and the idea that students can plan or be prepared for and even construct or generate chance career events in their lives. So this is creating our own luck. Okay. This is not manifesting. This is not manifesting. This is hard, objective um, networking. We're rapidly increasing the amount of people that we know on almost like a conversational level. That's something different than going to an event and handing out a business card and chatting up a bunch of people. It's not the same thing. A one-on-one, in person, I guess, or over Zoom or over the phone, conversation is very different. There's a connection that's obviously very different, and you can't replicate that at a networking event or cocktails. So our question is, how can we create the conditions to get what we want? Okay, I'm going to take a break here and give you an example. I started a user experience meetup group. I was very frustrated. I was applying for UX jobs. I didn't have the portfolio yet, so I was kind of doing a lot of just blind firing off my resume. But I got tired of getting rejected, right? And so what I did was I took an example from Seth Godin. Seth Godin has this book called Poke the Box. So I thought, how can I poke the box? How can I shake things up and do something? What can I do that everybody else in my situation is not going to do? And at the time, I already knew that I was good at teaching. I like teaching. I like explaining things. And I had come fresh off attending these really expensive uh, design workshops. So I had all the workbooks, right? And so I came up with the idea that I can be like Bruce Lee. I can teach this stuff to people who don't have access to it, right? The same way that Bruce Lee taught kung fu to non Chinese people, and he got in trouble for it, right? I'm not getting in trouble for anything, but it's the idea of taking something that I have and that I've invested time and energy in, and giving it to somebody who otherwise wouldn't have the time and access or free time to acquire it the same way that I acquired it. So very quickly, I had people join my meetup group. It got up to around 200 people. People were joining it the same day. I was completely blown away. But the example is I did something that other people didn't do, and it led me to meet a lot of people I would not have met otherwise. I met a lot of managers actually. I created this for people like me who are like newbies to design or newbies to UX. I had a lot of managers show up, so I was completely blown away. I was like, "Why are you guys here?" One thing I realized that design is a job. It's still a job. It's still a job. So it can be boring, it can be frustrating, just like any other job, right? We still have to show up to work on time. We still have deadlines to meet. We still have meetings to attend. We still have activities to prioritize. It's still a job. Design is a job. Um, Couple people I want to mention. Uh, this is Dale Carnegie. We're going to be taking something from Dale Carnegie from one of his chapters from the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. He talks about how to make people like you. Now, we aren't talking um, about pretending. We're not pretending. Um, but the idea is that when you ask people about themselves, about their lives, and then you shut up about yourself, you're just asking questions and you're showing interest and showing fascination in other people's lives. Something weird happens. You can not say a word, but people's sentiment of you is that you're an awesome person. I don't know how this works, but it works. All right. So we're going to use that. And I also talked about, I also mentioned Bruce Lee, um, the art of networking without networking. Again, this is flipping the idea of what networking is on its head. And we're going to do the old fashioned getting in front of people and sitting down and talking to them. Just like in the old days, you saw a for sale sign and you go in, you say, "Hey, mister, are you hiring?" And you'd have a conversation and you'd work something out directly with that person. We're not asking for anything right now. We're not asking for jobs. We're not asking for anybody to hire us. So the other thing is that it takes a lot of the overwhelm and a lot of the pressure off of talking to people because, hey, you're just asking people about their life. We aren't asking people for anything. We're not asking people for a referral, or we aren't asking people for a job. We're not talking about this. We're talking about them and their lives, and we're expressing interest in whatever they're doing. Right? If we want to learn, if we're interested in being a Scrum Master, we're going to talk to them about Scrum and about whatever how their day is. What's your actual day like? And I have a script about this. Um, let's keep it going. So another thing is so the example of Palpatine, Darth Sidious, is that we have to remember that um, that we have to be a little bit calculating. We have to come a little bit over to the dark side. Okay. I what I mean by that is we have to plan out what we want to create in our lives. We have to plan this out, right? Um, Palpatine was like the end of 1,000 years of careful, cold, calculated, malicious, yes, but calculated planning. We're not going to be malicious, but this is something that began with Darth Bane and ended with Palpatine, right? But that's 1,000 years of planning and hiding in the shadows and acquiring assets, and yes, and networking and talking to people and gaining allies, right? And making deals with people, making arrangements with people, right? And at the end, he he controls the entire empire. Right? All right, startup of you. Reid Hoffman has this awesome book called Startup of You. Two concepts that I want to bring to your attention. Um, Opportunities are network plus resources plus momentum. The faster we can get a hold of people, we can create momentum. Resources come from other people. The other thing is this teaches us to be resourceful. The actual resource is not that we want to develop is not resource as this should actually be resourcefulness. Resourcefulness, because for example, let's just say that you can't find anybody in your area on LinkedIn. Okay, what do I do next? Okay, well, you're resourceful. What ideas can you come up with? Well, I can look up companies. I can look up blogs. I can look them up on Amazon. I can look at authors who have written books. I can talk to them. And I've actually done that in the past. I'll subscribe to somebody's email list, an author's email list, and I'll hit reply and I'll talk to them, and they'll reply back because again, they're just people. This is just people. When we're working here, we have to realize that everybody is just people, just like us. They aren't special. They aren't better than us. They aren't smarter than us. They're just people, right? They may have more time served in your field of interest, or they may have more experience or more knowledge, but they're not better or smarter than you. Okay, they're just further along. All right. um, so anybody who's watching, if you want to get on with me and work on this, uh, feel free to go ahead and join the screen and post a comment somewhere. I'm still learning how to use this ScreenFlow application, StreamYard application. ScreenFlow is something else. Of video editing. All right, network plus resourcefulness equals momentum, not plus momentum. All right, and personalized advice. One of the best things we get when we network is people will then tell us they can see us and they can see where we're at, and they can say, for your situation, you should do X. And some of the best advice I've ever received was from people who I sat down with over coffee and talked with, to the point where they could understand my unique situation and my unique needs. And they volunteer this. It's not something I ask. They volunteer this. When we do this type of interview, people volunteer to help you. Again, we're not asking people for anything. We're asking questions, but we're not asking for anything. Those are two different things. And we're mostly asking questions about them. All right. So what is the process? The process is number 1, outreach. Number 2, reverse interview, and number 3, follow up. Number 1, outreach is getting a hold of people. What do we say? Who do we talk to? Right? To elicit a response, to increase the chances of getting a response. All right, I'm going to go on mute for a couple seconds. All right, let's continue. Number 2 is reverse interview. Number 3 is follow up. The point of follow up is that after we do the interview, we want to, if we think of our network as this like pyramid scheme, right? This is us, and this is the first group of people we interview. They lead us to more people, who leads us to more people, and eventually that leads us to a role. Eventually, one of these people is going to be hiring, or has some head count on their team, and they want to bring somebody on, but they don't want to just bring anybody on because they're trying to bypass this process too. So some teams and some managers are trying to bypass this process because they want to get somebody who they like. So how this works out is that, um, let's go back. How this works out is that a manager will have a call with you and you guys work something out, just like in the old days. And they say, okay, I'm going to add the requisition, the actual job listing, okay, fine, on our company website. I'm going to do it in the next hour. You go and apply and let me know when you apply, and then I take it down. Okay. So that's the hidden job market. Okay. Not every team advertises headcount all the time. So I don't want to say that the LinkedIn careers or jobs website is outdated or is not useful. But you can use this as a supplement to whatever job applications you are submitting or whatever recruitment or staffing agencies you're working with. All right. Outreach script. So what to say when contacting a potential node? Why do I use the word node? I use the word node to call back to this, oh shoot, to this to this diagram, right? Yes, there are people. We are talking to people. But again, in being a little bit more colder and calculating, we have to kind of like chess pieces, put these people in place, right? To to help us. And we're helping them, and I'll explain why later. So we have the outreach script. Hi, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time it is. Okay. Why we have these modifications is that we always want to show that we're paying attention and that this message is not canned spam message that we blast to everybody. We are modifying based off of who we're talking to and when we're talking to them and how we found them. Lead in sentence. I found you on Google or so and so said you'd be a good person to to talk to, or I found your name on such and such website. All this is really about is letting people know that we're not stalkers, right? And we're not stalkers and we're not spammers. I'm really interested in, and you put in here whatever you're interested in. We're not talking about jobs. We're not talking about careers, unless we're only talking about their career. And I saw your profile. I saw in your profile that you've done it for quite some time, or I I I noticed that you majored in lighting design or you majored in theater. So this is very fascinating. I want to know how you went from. I'd love to hear how you went from theater to tech, for example. Are you available for coffee or lunch? This may change to a Zoom call. You know, are you available for a Zoom call or a phone call? I really like to get their perspective or advice for somebody like you who's done X or who's worked in X or has experience with X, such and such. If they aren't local, are you available for a conference call? I don't think people use Link anymore, but maybe I should change this to Skype or Zoom or a Skype Zoom session. There you go. I really like to get a little phone call. I don't think people even use the word conference call anymore. I think the word Zoom is almost like Google Zoom call. I'd really like to get the perspective of somebody like you who is X. Okay. So now we get to the main event. We get to the reverse interview. And if you want this, please text me or connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll send you this deck. And I can get on Messenger, I can get on LinkedIn chat, and I can help you. Let's just work on it, right? Um, Sample open-ended questions to ask during coffee phone meetings. How did you get into these are just sample questions. You can make up your own questions. One thing I want to point out here, is I use open-ended query words. How, what, um, why, how, what do you think about? So you can't go wrong with using those types of questions. The more open-ended, the better. For example, what's your day like? Like, what do you do all day? And you just sit back and you listen to people talk about what they do all day. Very easy. And um, an enhancement is you bring a notebook and a pen and you take notes to show people. And this again plays up the whole: I'm a student, you're a teacher, I'm the mentee, and you're the mentor. I'm the person coming to you for advice. People enjoy the idea that they're helping somebody because they are helping you, but we're helping them more actually. And I'm going to explain why later. So again, back to Dale Carnegie, we're making the conversation all about them. So we hear things that pique our interest, and we say, "Really? Oh, wow, really? That's fascinating. Can you tell me more about that? Or why is that? How does that work? What do you think about X?" And always close with, "Who else should I talk to?" And the most important thing is we never, after open-ended questions, is we never ask about job openings. We want to expand the network as far as possible. If they mention another potential person or node, they say, you say, "How can I get introduced to him or her?" How? Again, this is open-ended, not can you. Keeping it open-ended the entire way through. We don't ever want to ask anybody yes no questions, even if you get yeses. Open ended. How can I get in contact? How can I get in touch with? Contact and get in touch leaves open the option for email or phone because we want them to suggest, "Oh, I'll just shoot him an email, or I'll shoot him an email and I'll CC you." And you say, "Oh, really? Man, that'd be great. Thank you." Why does this work? I got a message. I'm testing this material on Facebook, and I got cussed out on Facebook today. I got a couple mean comments where people were telling me to f off, and they're saying that this is a scam. Well, I just walked through the whole thing for you. You don't need me. This is not a scam. It's just deep psychology. It's deep psychology. Why? How are we helping people more than they're helping us? Well, we're not putting people in the weird position to ask about job openings because most people don't know that. In general, people don't know. Asking about jobs closes their mind. Asking about themselves opens their mind. It gives people get to relive their career over maybe an hour of talking, and you create space for them to reminisce and talk about themselves. Because honestly, a lot of people don't get the opportunity to talk about themselves and have somebody genuinely interested in them. Even talking about how their day went with their spouses or with their significant others or with their own children or their parents. A lot of people are off in their own world and they don't want to pay attention to what you're all about. We're going to be the one person in their life. And very often you will find that you are the one person in their life that cares enough to spend an hour to talk to them, to reach out to them and say, "Can you help me? Can I ask you some questions?" Often they get more joy out of it than you do. Many times more joy. I know I do. When people ask me for help. um, People want other people back to Dale Carnegie. People want other people to be interested in them. People, and a lot of people are lonely and bored, even if you're alone in a crowd. Again, back to this overlap of nice guys, this sort of cluster of issues that certain guys have. One of them is introversion, right? Or they may be socially awkward and not really know how to have conversations. And here you come with just a set of questions, and it's easy. They just knock it out of the park. And they said, "Man, I really enjoyed that. That was a good conversation." Sometimes people want to vent, and you're a new person. You're outside of their network. You don't know. You're not a coworker, and you're not a family member, so they get to vent. You're probably the only person in their life who is giving them your undivided attention. And this one thing that works for you is that the reverse interview removes all the anxiety and overwhelm, I should say overwhelm, from from the process, from networking. You don't have to go to an event, you don't have to print out cards, you don't have to get up on stage and talk to people. You just show up with your notepad, notebook, and you sit back and you listen with a smile on your face. And you should be generally interested in people. Connecting with people is fun. Mingling is not. Mingling. You guys are helping me uh, correct my grammar. Yeah, that's actually something I got cussed out about as well, is my bad grammar. Well, if my grammar was so bad, you noticed my ad, and it affected you enough such that you could actually comment on it. Fantastic. So your homework, almost done, guys. Your homework is to make a list of people. So start with your friends and family, and then you prioritize them based off of. I use the word proximity to target, but um, the people who you can, or you are guessing, you're making an educated guess who's most likely to get me to what I'm looking for. Okay, so start with friends and family, then um, then you can go on LinkedIn and start looking people up. If you need some help with this and with targeting, I can help you with this. Right, guys, l- let's work on this and get back into action. Um, and then just start reaching out. Right, use the script. I can give you this. I can give you this as a download. I can share it with you in Google Docs. And if you need my help, again, don't hesitate to reach out. Uh, I'm on LinkedIn as Zaid Hisham, linkedin.com/n/slash Zaid Hisham. Send me a connection request. And guys, I'm going to end this stream a little bit early. I don't see any viewers on right now. I'm going to end it early, and I'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye.